Hi, folks. Happy Juneteenth. Welcome to What's Trans or Gay in PA for June 19th, 2021. We share news stories and events that impact the LGBTQ plus community across Pennsylvania, from Philadelphia to Erie and all points in between. Today's show is brought to you by the YouTube program Powered by Rainbows, starring Matt Haslam, provider of LGBTQ plus education for virtual classrooms in Pennsylvania and around the world. And by Aura Jewelry by Mary Moore, maker of fine quality, reasonably priced necklaces and other items. Check out her Etsy page for details. Today's show is also brought to you by One Hope Wines. Their award-winning wines are made by some of the most acclaimed winemakers in the industry, blending traditional winemaking methods with modern techniques. Each exquisite bottle becomes a catalyst for change. On today's show, we will recap this week's news. But first, let's take a moment to imagine how different life would be. So imagine, just put your thinking caps on and imagine. You are a heterosexual 16-year-old boy who happens to be an amazing baseball pitcher. You could go about your school day, finish up your classes, then head to the baseball diamond for the afternoon game. Your parents and classmates are sitting in the stands, watching you excel at America's pastime. No one would think twice about your athletic talents, and your coach might even recommend you for athletic scholarships. Few people in school would tease or bully you, except maybe the students who are jealous of your talent. So, to recap, you have adoring fans, a coach who thinks highly of you, and proud parents. Now imagine being a transgender girl in high school. Your classmates tease you daily when you are younger. The school district insists that you use the nurse's bathroom when you need it. You're not allowed to change in the locker room that matches your gender identity before your physical education classes. Then, if all that were not enough, now imagine the school board for your school district holds a meeting in which they decide out loud whether you get to participate in any athletics of any kind. You get to hear what your neighbors have to say about how, because you were once a boy, you should play on boys' sports teams, even though the medical evidence does not back what those parents are saying at all. Maybe you live in one of the 19 states with a GOP legislature that had nothing better to do during the COVID-19 pandemic than to decide if transgender girls should be allowed to play high school and intercollegiate sports. During their downtime, that same legislature felt it necessary, again during the COVID-19 pandemic, to decide whether you should be allowed to receive medical and psychiatric counseling as you move through the steps of gender affirmation. At this point, you have your classmates, their parents, the school board, the school's coaching staff, even your state legislators deciding if you should have any rights at all. Not one of them, not one, affirming who you are as a person, not one of them asking what you want to do. Pennsylvania is one of those states in which the legislature is considering bills to prohibit transgender girls from playing on girls' athletic teams. Then the election in 2020 comes, and Joe Biden becomes president of the United States. Now let's fast forward to the present. The U.S. Department of Education said Wednesday, transgender students are protected under a law prohibiting discrimination at federally funded schools, a shift in policy under President Joe Biden after his predecessor worked to undercut the rights of the LGBTQ community. Education Secretary Miguel Cardona said the agency would expand its interpretation of Title IX, the law that bans discrimination on the basis of sex, to also protect students on the basis of sexual orientation and gender identity. The law applies to any school or activity offered by an institution that receives federal funds and is linked to last year's Supreme Court ruling that extended protections of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 to gay and transgender people. Secretary Cardona said in a statement, quote, "The Supreme Court has upheld the right for LGBTQ people to live and work without fear of harassment, exclusion, and discrimination. And our LGBTQ students have the same rights and deserve the same protections. I am proud to have directed the Office for Civil Rights to enforce Title IX to protect all students from all forms of sex discrimination. Today, the department makes clear that all students, including LGBTQ students, deserve the opportunity to learn and thrive in schools that are free from discrimination." President Biden has overturned Trump-era rules that limited transgender people's ability to serve in the military, and his administration withdrew its support for a lawsuit that sought to bar trans kids' ability to compete in high school sports. Last month, the White House also said it would protect against discrimination in healthcare aimed at transgender people. In other news, in a unanimous decision handed down from the U.S. Supreme Court, the adoption agency Catholic Social Services has won the right to discriminate against prospective LGBTQ individuals to become foster and adoptive parents. The court ruled that Philadelphia's treatment of Catholic Social Services violated the agency's constitutional rights because the city's contract had a mechanism for allowing individualized exceptions to its non-discrimination policy that it did not grant to Catholic Social Services. The court, however, stopped short of recognizing a general constitutional right to discriminate based on religious beliefs. Governments may continue to enforce non-discrimination requirements so long as they do so consistently and uniformly. This decision does not create a general right for taxpayer agencies to discriminate. That's good news for the more than 400,000 children in foster care across the country, because they're the ones who get hurt the most if placement decisions are made based on an agency's religious beliefs rather than the child's best interests. LGBTQ people are just as qualified to be foster parents as their cisgender heterosexual counterparts. Their sexual orientation should not be a reason for being turned away from becoming foster parents. Also in the news this week, on Tuesday, State Representatives Brian Sims, Jessica Benham, and Malcolm Kenyatta, and House Democratic Caucus Chair Representative Dan Frankel joined Senator Steve Santaciero, Ciora Thomas, founder of the Sisters PGH, and Governor Tom Wolf on the front steps of the Pennsylvania Capitol in Harrisburg. Each made speeches denouncing the fact that the Pennsylvania Fairness Act has not been taken up for a vote since it was first introduced in the legislature in 2003. The Fairness Act would prohibit discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation, gender identity, and gender expression. The act, when passed, will apply to education, credit, housing, and all public accommodations. Although the US Supreme Court ruled last year in the Bostock decision that it is illegal to discriminate in an employment setting, the court stopped short of ending discrimination in all facets of life. Brian Sims begged his colleagues on both sides of the aisle to take up the bill and move it to the floor of both chambers for an up or down vote. Malcolm Kenyatta lamented that ending discrimination will take more than changing the law. We need to change people's minds and hearts. That said, the PA Fairness Act is a good place to start. Representative Dan Frankel made clear that he is introducing the bill in the House, and simultaneously, the Senate will also take up the bill this week. Most people are under the impression that discrimination against sexual orientation, gender identity, and gender expression are already illegal. After the speeches, all the representatives agreed with Representative Sims that the bill would not cost the taxpayers any money. It will make Pennsylvania a more competitive location for businesses to come because it will show that Pennsylvania accepts diversity in the workforce and all other public accommodations. Sierra Thomas spoke eloquently and passionately about how she and her crew established temporary shelters, emergency housing, food assistance, and counseling services for people who are transgender, in particular for Black or Indigenous people of color. Her facility is the only one of its kind in Western Pennsylvania, and their social media has gone round the globe. Ms. Thomas went on to say that while the Fairness Act is an important piece of legislation, it does not address other needs for the LGBTQ plus community. In particular, the Commonwealth does not have a ban on conversion therapy. Pennsylvania allows the trans-gay panic defense in criminal trials. Pennsylvania's ethnic intimidation or hate crime legislation does not cover sexual orientation, gender identity, or expression. Leadership for the Pennsylvania Equality Project also attended the press conference and agreed completely with Ms. Thomas on all these points. Now it's time for the rundown. The LGBT Center of Greater Reading will be hosting Pride Month in drive-in films every Saturday in June at the Goggle Works Center for the Arts. For details, see the center's website. The Three Rivers Business Alliance of Pittsburgh is hosting an LGBTQ plus family and friends hike on July 8th at 6 p.m. This event will take place at Emerald Grandview Park in Pittsburgh. For details, check rba.com. The Northwest PA Pride Alliance is hosting a Drive Your Pride parade at Presque Isle State Park in Erie on Sunday, June 27th. Decorate your car or vehicle as your personal parade float. Flags, streamers, signs, be creative. Just make sure you are able to safely obey all of the rules of the road. Also, it would be a good idea to behave in a manner that is respectful of COVID-19. In other words, mask if you're not vaccinated and retain social distancing. At any rate, those participating in the Drive Your Pride should gather at the parking lot of the Tom Ridge Environmental Center at 1 p.m. and the parade kicks off at 2. If you have news or events that you would like us to mention on our show, send story ideas to info@paequality.com. For events, please allow up to 1 week prior to the event for us to include it on the program. Thanks for watching today. If you like today's show, give us a thumbs up and be sure to subscribe to our channel. Join us tomorrow for Pep Talks Uncut. Our special guest is State Representative Mike Schlossberg. The show will be available on our YouTube channel starting at 1 p.m. tomorrow. And finally, be sure to tune in Monday when we will continue our discussion on a variety of topics that we've already discussed this week, in particular, book displays that are LGBTQ themed and appearing in libraries. Look out for more events on that. For now, What's Trans or Gay in PA is a production of the Pennsylvania Equality Project. All rights reserved.